The Galactic Council chambers had never witnessed such unanimous relief. Representatives from 47 species sat in their environmental pods, watching as the final signatures appeared on the Treaty of Universal Cessation. The war that had raged for 3 standard cycles was finally over. Ambassador Thexhal of the Vrex Confederacy flexed his chitinous mandibles in what passed for satisfaction among his kind. "The humans have been contained," he announced, his translator converting his clicks into standard galactic. "Their military installations are offline. Their fleet is grounded. Terra remains under indefinite quarantine." Council leader Zephyra, a crystalline being whose form shimmered with approval, resonated a harmonious tone. "The galaxy is safe. Humanity's enthusiasm for warfare has been neutralized without extermination, a merciful solution. The treaty was elegant in its simplicity. Humanity would remain on Earth, their technology suppressed to pre-spaceflight levels. In return, they would be left alive. It was more than most species offered their enemies. What none of the council members knew was that Dr. Sarah Chen had been in cryosleep for the past 4 years. The emergency beacon penetrated even the deepest levels of suspended animation. Sarah's eyes snapped open to the soft blue glow of her pod's interior, confusion washing over her as systems hummed to life around her. The lab was dark except for emergency lighting, and something was very, very wrong. "Area status report," she croaked, her voice rough from years of disuse. "Dr. Chen," the AI's voice carried an unusual tension. "Current date is September 15th, 2387. Earth is under occupation. All human military assets have been deactivated. I have maintained radio silence as instructed." Sarah's blood ran cold. She'd entered cryo in 2383, just before the completion of her project. The war had been going poorly then, but occupation? "Show me what happened." The holographic display painted a grim picture. The Galactic Council had systematically dismantled humanity's defenses, convinced that technological suppression was the key to permanent peace. They'd been thorough. Orbital platforms destroyed, ships grounded, even basic manufacturing disabled. But they hadn't known about Dr. Sarah Chen, and they certainly hadn't known about Project Pandora. "Aria, are the quantum resonance chambers still operational?" "Affirmative. All 7 chambers remain in perfect condition. The dimensional breach calculations are complete and verified. However, Dr. Chen, I must advise that without proper field testing..." "Field testing was a luxury we never had," Sarah interrupted, pulling herself from the pod. Her muscles screamed from years of atrophy, but adrenaline pushed her forward. "They think they've neutered us. Time to show them why you don't cage a species that learned to split atoms before they learned to fly." The laboratory stretched deep beneath the Montana mountains, hidden from orbital scans by layers of metamorphic rock and electromagnetic shielding. Sarah's team had built it during the darkest days of the war, when defeat seemed inevitable. If humanity was going to fall, they'd reasoned, they'd at least leave the galaxy something to remember them by. Project Pandora wasn't a weapon in any conventional sense. It was something far more terrifying. It was a doorway. Sarah's fingers flew across interfaces she'd designed personally, bringing online systems that had slumbered in darkness for years. The quantum resonance chambers began their warm-up sequence, reality itself beginning to vibrate at frequencies that shouldn't exist. "Dr. Chen," Aria's voice held genuine concern now. "Long-range sensors indicate Galactic Council monitoring stations throughout the system. If they detect these energy signatures..." "Let them detect," Sarah snarled, her exhausted body moving with desperate purpose. They wanted to see what humanity looks like when it's truly desperate. Grant their wish. The first chamber reached optimal resonance. Through the reinforced viewing portal, space itself began to stretch. Colors that had no names flickered at the edges of perception. The dimensional barrier, already gossamer thin in this particular region of spacetime, began to tear. On the other side lay the void between. Not empty space, but the space between realities where things dwelt that had never known the comfort of existing in just 3 dimensions. Sarah's hands paused over the final activation sequence. Once she opened this door, there would be no closing it. The entities beyond existed in a realm where entropy flowed backward, where cause and effect were suggestions rather than laws. They would pour into this reality like water through a broken dam, rewriting the fundamental nature of existence itself. The Galactic Council thought they understood warfare. They'd conquered through superior technology and numbers. believing that control of conventional forces meant victory. They'd never encountered a species desperate enough to weaponize cosmic horror itself. "Final authorization required," Arya announced. Sarah thought of her daughter, who'd died in the bombardment of Luna City. Of her colleagues who'd sacrificed everything for a war they couldn't win. Of 7 billion humans trapped on a single world, told to be grateful for their cages. Authorization granted. "Open all 7 chambers simultaneously," the mountain screamed. Reality tore like wet paper, and through the wounds came things that had waited eons for such an opportunity. They flowed into normal space like living nightmares, entities whose mere presence caused mathematics to rewrite itself. Where they passed, the laws of physics became temporary suggestions. The Galactic Council's monitoring stations detected the dimensional breach 17 minutes too late. By the time emergency fleets arrived at Earth's position, the planet was surrounded by a growing sphere of altered spacetime, within which impossible things danced to the rhythm of collapsing wave functions. The first Council ship to enter the anomaly emerged 3 days later, its crew speaking in languages that wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years. The second ship emerged as a flowering bush that sang operas about the heat death of universes that had never existed. Ambassador Thexhal received the reports in his luxury quarters, his mandibles clicking in patterns of pure terror. The humans hadn't just opened a door, they'd opened a door to ruin itself, the primordial chaos that existed before the first star learned to shine. "Withdraw all forces," he ordered, his translated voice breaking. "Send word to the Council. The treaty is void. Sir, what about containment?" Thexhal watched through his view screen as another Council cruiser transformed into a flock of crystalline butterflies that phased through solid matter. "There is no containment. The humans have reminded us why some species aren't meant to be caged." Back in the Montana laboratory, Dr. Sarah Chen smiled as she watched the feeds from orbit. The entities were already beginning to spread beyond Earth's solar system, carrying their beautiful impossibility to every corner of the galaxy. The Council would have a choice now: coexistence or watching reality itself unravel thread by thread. She'd given humanity a future, even if it was a future no one could have imagined. Some wars, after all, are worth ending the universe to win.